along with myself, and we are going to be talking about the snow threat that's moving into the Carolinas this evening, going into the early morning hours tomorrow. If you're unaware completely of what's about to unfold across the Carolinas tonight, we will have snow in the higher elevations of western North Carolina, and then further to the east, we're going to see snow work down into the low elevations, the Raleigh area, even further to the east and south than that. Where if you're in eastern North Carolina and you're north of Fayetteville, you could see 1 to 3 inches of snow, maybe even a couple folks seeing 2 to 4 inches. So it's exciting. Everyone is super excited about the winter weather because this will be the first snow, accumulating snow of the winter down there in eastern North Carolina. But with that, I'm going to toss it over to Frank because I know Frank has taken a little bit he's taken a peek at this forecast and he'll give us a synopsis of what to expect.
The situation is already starting to unfold here, Evan. We see snow reported in the northern mountains of North Carolina around Boone. Last I checked, the observations in Boone we're not reporting snow just yet, still reporting rain and 36 degrees, but I don't think you have to go much higher up in elevation to see snow right now. And on Imping, I'm seeing some reports of snow in that area at this point. So the snow levels are coming down as colder air starts to work in from the north and west, and also some dynamic cooling, I think, getting going as well, with some very heavy precipitation starting to consolidate there in the foothills around Hickory and southwestward into upstate South Carolina, but those areas still too warm to see any snow at this point, just seeing some fairly heavy rain right now. But as the night wears on and that activity works eastward and the colder air continues to get pulled in, that's when we'll see the snow start to break out, or rather rain turning over to snow. This is going to be a short-lived but very hard-hitting storm while it's hitting, and this part of the reason why we are going to see accumulation. It's been so warm in advance of the storm that I don't think that if we weren't seeing heavy precipitation, then I don't think we would see much in the way of accumulations, because the ground's been so warm. If it came down lightly, then it would just simply melt quicker than it would accumulate. But in this particular case, it looks like it's going to come down real hard across the northern tier of counties in North Carolina, especially in the east. And as a result, we're going to see some accumulations in those areas. And as you mentioned, most areas see 2, or rather 1 to 3 inches, but few local spots in eastern North Carolina, especially toward the Virginia line, we can see 4, maybe even 5 inches in 1 or 2 spots. This mostly accumulates on the grass and elevated road surfaces, but other road surfaces can get slushy, and it'll be winding down first thing after daybreak tomorrow, Thursday morning. So those of you in those areas can see some slushy roads, especially those elevated road surfaces, and you're likely going to need some extra time to get to work. Back to you, Evan.
Sure. Yeah. So the timeline for this event, we're eyeing about midnight for temperatures to cool just enough in the northern and western Piedmont for us to start to see some changeover in those lower elevations, changeover to snow. That is, from there, we're going to rapidly see the rain snow line move south and east. And I've got it on my screen, and I guess I can share it to y'all real quick so you can see that this is what we're working with, that we are going to be, this is midnight that you're looking at currently. You see a little bit of snow starting to work into the northwestern Piedmont. And then as we work through 1 a.m., 2 a.m., by 2 a.m., we're seeing snow transition into the Raleigh area. And these rates, especially along the rain snow line, are going to be very heavy. You're going to be looking at huge, wet snowflakes that will stick quickly given the likely 1 to 2 inch per hour rates this will be. We can actually go over to this little snowfall 1 hour total, and the NAM is indicating widespread 1 to 2 inch snowfall rates throughout the Raleigh area and just to the west of there. But then as we go through the night, that heavy snow extends to the east all the way out to the coastal plain. And truthfully, guys, I think that's where we're going to see the highest totals will be out towards the coastal plain, maybe northeastern North Carolina. That could be the area that maximizes the amount of precipitation that they get and the amount of cold air that they get. And they'll combine the two to get, like we said, that potentially 4 inches, maybe even just a little bit more for a few lucky folks around there.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty wet, heavy wet snow. So A lot of this is
Right.
going to melt on contact because surface temperatures are still in the 40s. Now, if we do, like Evan said, if we do get some of those heavier bands, that can kind of overtake the warmer temperatures on the ground. But overall, I think roadways should be pretty good unless you really find yourself under those intense heavy bands where we could see some slush develop on the roadways. But this will mostly be a grassy surface event. And maybe not as many issues on the road. I know, Jordan, you live up in the area that's kind of expecting this. You're under that winter weather advisory right now. What's it look like for Chapel Hill, the Chapel Hill area?
Yeah, it's all going to depend on, where the heaviest band's set up and, how quickly that snow can accumulate. Looking, combining the model's information and the National Weather Service product, looking at maybe 2 to 4 inches potentially in the Triangle area. I'm actually tonight in the Triad at my parents' house. So we're looking maybe more along the lines of 1 to 2 inches here in the Greensboro, Winston-Salem area. So it'll be interesting to see where the heaviest band's set up, because that can really lead to higher localized totals, especially with this being a wetter snow and like you were saying, accumulating mostly on grassy surfaces. So hopefully not a lot of impacts. Well, that's what we'll cross our fingers for.
And this is going to be a pretty quick moving system as well. I think Frank was hitting on that a little bit earlier. I mean, this is not going to be one of those snow events where we see it last most of the day. This is just a couple of hours, a time frame. And Evan, these events where we live here in Western North Carolina, you're in the Asheville area, me closer to the Hickory area. This is one of those occasions where we're not going to see much of anything here, because by the time the cold air gets here, the moisture is already moving through the Piedmont into central North Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately for all of us folks that are in the Asheville area, so if you're in southeast Buncombe County, I know it's a rather populous area that likes to pay attention to these live streams. We may not see much, if any, snow tonight. Like you said, Scotty, foothills, western Piedmont, Charlotte area. Unfortunately, this will not be your storm, but there is certainly a lot of uncertainty going on with this one, and we've kind of touched on that. But Scotty, I wanted to share a map real quick, and I will do so. This is the current WPC 50th percentile expected snowfall totals through the night into tomorrow morning. You can see that 1 to 3, maybe even a few folks, 3 to 4 inches in the Raleigh area and that northern central Piedmont of North Carolina, with some impressive totals near the Boone area as well. But here's the kicker. If you look at the 90th percentile, which is kind of known as the weather weenie percentile, you do see the potential, a 10% chance for snow totals up to 6 to 8 inches further to the east if we get really heavy bands setting up that last 3 to 5 hours. 2 inches per hour for 3 hours. Doesn't matter how warm your ground is going to be, you're going to be dealing with a little bit of compaction, but you can quickly stack up 3 to 5 inches of snow. Some areas potentially even more than that. But just to balance that out before I get in trouble for posting it, there's also the 10th percentile, which is rather abysmal. So let's just not look at that one anymore. But generally,
this is your boom or bust forecast.
Right. 50th
right.
percentile, we're shooting for middle of the road. This is a great map for showing generally how much we're expecting.
Yeah,
and I say we, the WPC, but we agree with them.
And
now keep in mind, no matter which one of these scenarios actually works out, we had these warm soils and the marginal air temperatures to deal with. Stuff's going to be melting fast. The ratios, snow to liquid ratios, probably aren't going to be all that great either. Even if you do end up getting 6 inches of snow or 8 even falling from the sky, you may only have 4 on the ground when all's said and done.
That's a great point. Oftentimes we see huge snow totals. You may see 8 inches, but there's a good chance that was measured on a snowboard and not on the ground.
Exactly. This is a situation where those snowboard measurements could be very different than the snow on ground measurements.
And this is going to be snow that some areas not used to seeing. Raleigh, Wilson, Rocky Mount, over to Greenville, North Carolina. I saw a post earlier today from East Carolina University saying, as of right now, class is still on for your Thursday morning, but that could change with what happens overnight, and even portions of the Outer Banks under winter weather advisory. So there's some areas that could see snow, and like Evan and Frank were just talking about, that northeastern part of North Carolina, your Plymouth, Greenville, Washington, up to Elizabeth City, out to the Outer Banks, they could really hit the jackpot with the cold air and the moisture sinking up at the right time. So we will watch those areas. But again, it's going to be a wet snow. It's not really that fine powdery snow. So I don't expect, we don't expect major road issues unless, like Evan said, you get that boom potential and you see all that heavy snowfall in a short amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be the thing to watch, is when it's going to be coming down really hard and coming down faster than it can melt on the road surfaces. My concern is that it ends up happening in the pre-dawn areas, Raleigh and north, for you early risers that need to get somewhere during those times. You may have some struggles to get around. Eastern North Carolina, toward daybreak and into the early part of tomorrow, those are the areas where it may be coming down really hard when people are trying to get around, and it makes things very difficult.
Looking at some of the Twitter reports here, Virginia County, or State of Virginia DOT, the Bristol office reporting rapidly changing conditions due to heavy snow falling on Interstate 81 in Smith and White counties. So up there a little bit more colder. One thing that Evan, that we've not really hit on yet, which I know you were excited for, and you're going to venture out early in the morning, is behind this, we're going to see some pretty substantial wind, especially in the North Carolina mountains and even into the foothills and the Piedmont. Not as drastic as it's going to be in the mountains, but still pretty breezy.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we currently have a wind advisory in effect for most, if not all, of Western North Carolina. And we are seeing the potential for wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour, even into the valley areas. So Boone, you could see gusts to 50 miles an hour, and Asheville, 40 to 50 miles an hour. Now, if you are one of the few that lives above 3,500 or 4,500 feet, that's where it's going to be legitimately windy. Not just breezy, but windy. Gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour above 4,500 feet. And a few areas, like you said, Scotty, I will be out on Grandfather Mountain tomorrow morning, where Grandfather could see isolated wind gusts up to, let's go with 80 to 90 miles an hour tomorrow morning. 80 to 85, I'll call it tight. 80 to 85 miles an hour tomorrow morning, with gusts out in the ridge line nearing 100 miles an hour.
And that's on top of, a couple inches of snow. We know it's snowing right now in the mountains of North Carolina. So going to be a pretty brutal day. Frank, I know we normally do forecast updates with you. So as we look past tomorrow, it's going to be a pretty chilly weekend, and then maybe a little more mischief on Sunday. You want to kind of give us a weekend preview before we end the recording tonight?
Yeah, that's right. Those of you who are seeing the snow in eastern North Carolina, enjoy that, because it looks like going through the rest of Thursday, the sun comes out and starts melting that away. And what doesn't melt tomorrow is likely gone Friday. But then we go into the weekend, we have another storm moving in, and it looks as though we get one of these wedge setups once again, where parts of North Carolina, it's not going to be a snow setup this time, unless it snows just a little while briefly at the onset. It looks like areas in North Carolina, especially the northern mountains, the northern Piedmont in North Carolina, mainly along in the north of I-20, going to see, or not I-40 rather, are going to see some ice, at least for a time, Saturday night into Sunday morning. And there could be a decent amount of ice buildup with this one. It looks like the icing period could go on for some hours before it warms up above freezing during the day Sunday. So there looks as though there's going to be some potential for some tree and power line damage there. Something to think about for this weekend.
Yeah, I'm interested watching that setup because it looks a little bit more classic winter weather setup for North Carolina than what we've had tonight and previous. It's more of that CAD setup, so that's going to be of interest. Jordan, you live up along the Triad and What was it like preparations for the Greensboro area tonight as you prepare for the snow that's incoming?
Yeah, just hunkering down. I'm going to enjoy this one, although I don't think with it being such a wet and slushy snow, I don't know how many snowmans are going to be built across the Triad tomorrow. We'll see, but it's not the greatest for that. But nonetheless, it's going to be the first, significant snow we've had in quite some time. So I think people are really going to enjoy this one. Hopefully it pans out. We'll see. But yeah, and also looking into the weekend as well for another potential round of wintry weather. So things are really getting active here, and we'll see how long this pattern stays in place.
Yeah, you're speaking of that, some signs showing that the first couple of weeks of February could be pretty chilly around here and somewhat of an active storm track. So if you don't get your snowfall tonight and you don't get your ice on Sunday, I think there's still potential in the next couple of weeks that we could see a couple of more close calls with wintry weather. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. Evan, what are you watching before we sign off tonight?
Well, I think we're going to see the potential for some winter weather, like you said, Scotty, but it does look a little bit messy, and it's going to be diurnal. So around here tonight, I don't think we're going to see a whole bunch in the Asheville area, but going into Sunday, like you said, that could be the event that maybe we do a bit better on.
Yeah, I think Sunday bears watching Saturday night into Sunday. So we'll keep our eyes on that. We'll keep you updated here on the social media platforms, especially Twitter, but we'll also put some updates out on Facebook as well. We appreciate you watching tonight here on the Carolina Weather Group. Sorry for the late start. We were recording a show earlier this evening, and so we were wanting to go live around 9:30, so we were a little bit late, but we apologize about that. But just be prepared if you live in on the Interstate 40 corridor from Greensboro to Raleigh into eastern North Carolina there along Highway 64 and 264 and up in the North Carolina mountains. Watch for the chance of some accumulating snowfall. Like Frank said, by tomorrow afternoon, everything will probably have been melted away. We'll probably watch for some refreeze issues Friday morning, but all of our attention will then turn to Saturday night into Sunday, and see what happens. So Evan, be safe hiking up the mountain there and getting your wind readings. Jordan, enjoy the snow for us. Well, don't enjoy it for Frank because Frank doesn't like it. So Frank doesn't want you to enjoy it, but I want you to enjoy it.
Only for this year. Next winter, I'm going to start liking snow again because I'm not going to have to put up with it all the time anymore.
That's right. That's right. So we'll keep you updated throughout the weekend for the latest weather changes. So again, thank you for watching tonight. We'll see you back here for another Carolina Weather Group episode real soon.